Hello and welcome to The World This Week with me, Anthony Baxter. A look at some of the biggest global news stories for an international city, brought to you by the London Live News team. Today, a survivor of the Uvalde school shooting shares the moment she hid from the gunman as lawmakers in the States are urged to prevent future massacres. But it came as an emotional Matthew McConaughey addressed the White House calling for gun reforms. We'll bring you both of those moments. Plus, we're in the pool with PT and Simmons as they share thoughts on the upcoming Commonwealth Games and why there's a need for more young swimmers. And a different type of water baby will have details of the race to protect Australia's elusive weedy sea dragon as climate change threatens its existence. All of that to come. First, though, this morning, representatives at the US Congress were left in tears this week as a survivor of the Uvalde school shooting described how she tried to hide herself from the gunman. 11-year-old Mia Cirillo gave a graphic testimony of what she witnessed during the massacre last month. We are going to play part of that now. You might not want younger viewers to hear it. You might find it distressing. The clip lasts for a minute and a half.
She went to go lock the door, and he was in the hallway, and they made eye contact. And then she went back in the room and she told us, go hide. And then we went to go hide behind my teacher's desk and behind the backpacks. And then he shot the little window, and then he went to the other classroom, and then he went. There's a door between our classrooms, and he went through there and shot my teacher and told my teacher goodnight and shot her in the head. And then he shot some of my classmates and the whiteboard. When I went to the backpacks, he shot my friend that was next to me, and I thought he was going to come back to the room. So I grabbed the blood and put it all over me. And
what did you do then when you put the blood on yourself?
Just stay quiet, and then I got my teacher's phone and called 911.
And what did you tell 911?
I told her that we need help and to send the police in our classroom.
Mia Cirillo there. Well, a powerful moment in the White House too, as Matthew McConaughey was given a rare opportunity to speak from the lectern as he pleaded for responsible gun ownership. The actor was born in Uvalde. 21 people died in the shooting. Well, he brought with him the shoes of one of the victims.
We also met Anna and Danilo, the mom and the stepdad of 9-year-old Maite Rodriguez. And Maite wanted to be a marine biologist. She was already in contact with Corpus Christi University of A&M for her future college enrollment. 9 years old. Maite cared for the environment so strongly that when the city asked her mother if they could release some balloons into the sky, in her memory, her mom said, oh no, Maite wouldn't want to litter. Maite wore green high-top Converse with a heart she had hand-drawn on the right toe because they represented her love of nature. Camilla's got these shoes. Can you show these shoes, please? Wore these every day. Green Converse with a heart on the right toe. These are the same green Converse on her feet that turned out to be the only clear evidence that could identify her after the shooting. How about that? We start by giving McKenna, Layla, Miranda, Nevaeh, Jose, Javier, Tess, Rogelio, Eliana, Annabelle, Jackie, Azuya, JC, Jayla, Ava, Amory, and Lexi. We start by giving all of them our promise that their dreams are not going to be forgotten.
Matthew McConaughey at the White House. Well, the House of Representatives voted through a series of measures regulating the sale of guns, but Republican opposition in the Senate means that the bill has very little chance of entering the law. Right, let's move on to Ukraine next, with conflict raging in the east of the country as Russian forces concentrate their efforts on the city of Severodonetsk. Ukrainian troops in trenches on the sidelines of the fighting have been speaking about the conditions that they face. This week, the Ukrainian president said that the future of the east of the country would depend on whether or not Severodonetsk falls to Russian forces. Well, despite being relatively quiet, soldiers say these trenches still get shelled every day. They face the enemy with a river and a couple of miles of no man's land separating them. The war has changed the landscape in this region, with miles of First World War-style trenches stretching across the countryside. In these trenches, soldiers have already spent a winter and a spring.
We have here a table, we have another table in another place. We sleep here in the same place where we eat. It's not like what we had at home, but our shower is the river under the bridge. We usually wash ourselves there. We are like Boy Scouts in the forest. We are the same. We invent new things. We made a sink from plastic bottles.
Well, with the invasion now into its fourth month, the men say they are preparing to be there throughout the summer and possibly into a second winter. More news this week. Investigations are continuing in Berlin after a teacher was killed and 14 school children injured when a car hit a crowd on a busy street. It happened on Wednesday. Police in Germany say a second teacher was seriously injured. A 29-year-old man has been arrested, with officials saying they are looking into suggestions that the driver was suffering from mental health problems. The former Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein is to face 2 counts of indecent assault against a woman in London. The Crown Prosecution Service says it has authorised police to charge the 70-year-old. The alleged offence is said to have taken place in 1996. Prosecutors have stressed the importance of giving Mr. Weinstein the right to a fair trial. A retired geologist from Bath was jailed in Iraq for 15 years after being accused of attempting to remove artefacts from the country. 66-year-old Jim Fitton had collected 12 stones and shards of broken pottery during an archaeological tour of the country. He insisted he had no idea he was breaking Iraqi law. His family have pleaded for the UK government to help him, but the Foreign Office says it can't interfere in the judicial process of other countries. At least 21 people died and dozens more were hurt in Iran after a train derailed. It happened in the east of the country between 2 cities. 348 people were on board. It's believed the train hit a digger which was working near the track. 5 of the 11 carriages were knocked off the line. North Korea is ready to conduct a new nuclear test at any time, according to American intelligence. The US special representative to the country made the warning after Pyongyang launched 8 ballistic missiles last Sunday. That is a daily record. The White House says any such tests will be met with a swift and forceful response. It has been 5 years since North Korea carried out such a nuclear operation. And new laws in Thailand mean people can now grow cannabis at home and sell the crop. The region is known for its strict drug laws, so the move is a first for Southeast Asia. The Thai government hoping that developing cannabis into a trade will boost agriculture and tourism. It is giving away 1 million seedlings to encourage the initiative. There we go, some stories from this week. Now, the issue of air pollution, something that we, of course, are acutely aware of here in the capital. It's one of the biggest health and environmental issues we face, according to officials. It is a crisis, though, that is shared by communities around the world. The World Health Organization says 99% of the Earth's population now breathe air which exceeds limits for dangerous particles, with lower-income countries facing the biggest impact. Tanya Francis reports now on how pollution is putting lives at risk in Uganda.
This is Kampala, the capital of Uganda, where a haze often hangs over the city. Dust from the dirt roads and particles from car exhausts pollute the streets. The matter is made worse by the burning of rubbish and the use of open fires in homes to help people cook. For 3 years, Michael Wanyama couldn't understand what was making one of his 3 sons ill.
Come.
One of my children was constantly in and out of clinics due to respiratory-related illnesses. And every time I would ask the doctors what could be causing this, reoccurring all the time, because we don't have the same systems in the bodies, Some people are affected more. Some people are more susceptible to this, to poor air quality. So I was told it's because of the air around us, the air he breathes, that causes him to fall sick all the time.
The heavy cost of medication for their son and their growing concern about his poor health persuaded Michael and his family to leave their home in the city and move to a more rural area. He's also set up a group to help other parents going through the same thing.
It was a bit resource intensive because it required shifting from where we were living to another place. I think that was in 2020, before the lockdown. Actually, I think we've all witnessed that during the lockdown time, the air quality was better. So I was like, now, since we have this time, because I didn't know that the COVID would hit, but before the lockdown, we were already planning to shift to a better place. You've seen the environment around, surrounded with trees and all that. So we have a bit of fresh air.
The slow rollout of rural electrification in parts of Africa means many people still rely on burning wood to heat their homes or cook. The smoke created has added to the crisis, according to one lung specialist.
If you have too much particulate matter, it can cause some immediate effects like irritations, coughing. However, some people who are maybe asthmatic or have TB, it can worsen their health state. It can complicate their breathing, and so it is a concern which we should get worried of.
In a step to try and inform people about the quality of air, a new app has been created which sends real-time data to users. Joel has led on the development.
If I'm having maybe problems with water, I can buy bottled water so that I don't take that water. Food, and try to look out for better food. Malaria, I can try to sleep in a mosquito net, but air quality, you're not going to do much. It's going to find you, whether you're rich or poor, you're going to breathe the same air. So if it's dirty, you won't really do much against it. So we have the innovation, at least, to try to monitor so that you can influence actions.
The World Health Organization estimates around 7 million people die prematurely each year around the world because of air pollution, a global burden that requires a global solution.
Tony Francis there with that report. The World This Week continues after the break. Not a seahorse, but a sea dragon. We'll hear about an elusive sea creature under threats from climate change down under. Hello there, welcome back. You're watching The World This Week with me, Anthony Baxter. A review of the main international stories from the last 7 days. Still to come before 7:30, Adam Peaty and Ellie Simmons on the need to get more young people in the pool and thoughts on the upcoming Commonwealth Games. First though, a service took place this week to honour British forces involved in the Falklands War. Next week marks the 40th anniversary of the end of the conflict, which began after Argentina invaded the islands. 255 members of the UK armed forces were killed. Well, let's just take a look at that service in more detail. So the Prime Minister led tributes to British forces who liberated the islands from Argentinian invaders. He was joined in Westminster by the Princess Royal, Princess Anne, and the Speaker of the House, Sir Lindsay Hoyle.
We were fighting for the essential principle that the Falkland Islanders, like people everywhere, have a sovereign right to decide their own destiny and choose their own loyalty. As we look at the world today, we can see all too obviously how that principle is still in peril and still needs defending.
Boris Johnson suggested that after the drama of the confidence vote amongst his Conservative MPs, he might now find time to make his first visit to the Falklands.
And I'm ashamed to say I think I'm the only one of the four speakers never to have been to the Falklands so far. Now things are a bit quieter in Westminster. Perhaps I may be able to go before too long.
And I'm looking forward to my about fourth visit, maybe fifth visit, to being able to visit the city of Port Stanley.
Princess Anne there, reflecting on Port Stanley's new status as a city, which was announced, of course, as part of the Queen's Jubilee celebrations. Let's move on to one or two other stories this week. A teacher from Kansas has admitted leading an all-female terror squadron in Syria. Alison Fluke Ekron pleaded guilty to training more than 100 women and girls for violence after joining the so-called Islamic State group. A court in Virginia heard how she left America in 2011 and worked with terrorists in Libya before moving to Syria. She faces up to 20 years in prison and will be sentenced in October. Police tracking a super yacht which belongs to a Russian oligarch say the vessel was finally seized this week in Fiji. Pictures show the FBI boarding the 350-foot Amadea on the Pacific island. Officials had been in a legal row with the owner, who argued the warrant contravened local laws. Well, Fiji's Supreme Court this week gave the green light for the boat to be taken in by the US as part of its sanctions. A remarkable survival story in California after a small plane crashed into the back of a house. It was about 75 miles east of LA. The pilot, the only person on board, survived but suffered serious injuries. Fire officials say 2 people in the house at the time were unhurt.
Covered a lot of these types of accidents before in the past. For the pilot to be transported and us to get information at this point that it's critical injuries, that's a miracle. Certainly great news it didn't go into the house. So at this point, we don't believe anyone on the ground was hurt, but to survive that alone is incredible.
And a shortage of lettuce has forced the fast food giant to put cabbage in its burgers and wraps in Australia. KFC told customers it had taken the measure after floods had destroyed local crops. And like most of the world, the country also dealing with soaring prices for fresh fruit and veg. The chicken shop told fans if cabbage wasn't their bag, simply ask for it to be removed when ordering. 3 well-known faces from the world of swimming who'd probably keep the cabbage. Well, they got together this week as new research showed 1 in 4 children who leave primary school here in England are unable to swim 25 metres. Swim England got Adam Peaty, Ellie Simmons and the Jamaican-born swimmer Michael Gunning by the pool to explain why more needs to be done to address the shortfall in skills. And Peaty also reflected on the upcoming Commonwealth Games in the Midlands as he continues to deal with a fractured foot.
1 in 4 children leave school without being able to swim. So Swim United is about bringing everyone together, different organisations with Speedo, just to help get more people learning to swim, more people having that skill of swimming and ultimately changing the future.
I think for me, it's not only getting as many people involved in sport for health reasons, it's also safety reasons. We really need to reach out into communities, especially deprived communities. And for me, that's extremely important because not many, as you said, not many people swim. So many people leave school and so many adults can't swim. For an island nation and for, we're surrounded by canals, we're surrounded by lakes. Again, it's a huge safety issue as well. But as many of those children we can get into sport and be active, it's better for everyone. For me, I want the future of swimming to be in a place where so many people have access to it, firstly, that we aren't closing down the facilities that people can use. So that's the first thing. We need investment in the local facilities, especially during an energy crisis where things are getting more pricey, energy's getting more pricey.
Just everyone involved, from all ages, all abilities. I think swimming is an incredible sport, and we have to say that because we love it, but it is, both for physically and mentally, and especially physically. It's a sport that's not much impact, whereas running, cycling, it can cause problems really with the joints, whereas swimming is incredible for keeping moving, keeping the body moving. So I think it's just to get as many people involved as possible of all ages and all abilities.
It's going to be a huge, huge competition, and it's going to be the one of my lifetime really that you will never get a closer home games to me. I'm from 40 minutes away from Birmingham. I grew up there. So I'm a Midlands person, Midlands boy as you say, and I'm excited to hopefully race in front of a home crowd that is very passionate, and wants to see some wins for Team England.
And finally this morning, into the little-known world of the weedy sea dragon, the bigger cousin of the better-known seahorse. The elusive species is increasingly under pressure from climate change, according to a group of scientists in Australia. Unique to the country's shores, experts there now try to find out as much as they can about the creature in order to protect them.
So in about 2001, we started our sea dragon work, and really everything sea dragon. So believe it or not, not a whole lot was known about them. Things like how far do they move? Are they genetically different in different parts of their range? Because that's important for conservation, to know that we can't just move a sea dragon from where we find it to some area where it's been depleted. The practical application is, first of all, we're required under international conventions to look after these animals and to report in their abundance. And so sea dragons are at some risk of loss, and so they're ones, this whole group in general, including the pipefishers, is in real trouble worldwide, and seahorses. And also they sort of represent what we call the Great Southern Reef. Not the Great Barrier Reef, but the Great Southern Reef, which is rocky reef all the way around southern Australia, and we're trying to promote that as a unit because it really needs protection, and this particular animal is sort of a little bit of a mascot.
The problem with that is not a lot's known about them. So to have that status changed without background information is quite concerning. So this is where the lab's been trying to gather up as much data on them as possible.
Beautiful creatures there. Work to preserve them underway in Australia. That is all from The World this week. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you at 7 next Saturday as we continue to round up the biggest international stories for a global city.